Okay, welcome everyone to today's Google Webmaster Central Office Hours Hangouts. I'm John Mueller. I'm a Webmaster Trends Analyst here at Google in Switzerland. I basically talk with webmasters like you guys and help to make sure that things are working smoothly for you. We have a bunch of questions in the Q&A already. If you want, you can add more questions as well, or for one of the future Hangouts. But to get started, do any of you guys have any questions that we need to cover?
In regards to press releases, I see a guy with the same website doing press releases every single like 12 hours, and it's the same title over and over again. What is the limit, to how much he can do, or she can do?
I mean, with a lot of these things, we don't have any hard limits where we'd say you can do 5 of these every day or 5 of this type of thing. Essentially, what we try to do is to make it so that if you're creating content, that you're creating it in a reasonable way and that it's unique and compelling content. If you essentially just take the same content and copy it over and over again, that's not really going to be that useful for us or for users. So that's something where you might want to take a look and see what you can do to improve that.
Okay, well, it's like top 3 cars, top 3 cars, top 3 cars, and it's like every time top 3 cars.
That sounds a bit excessive almost, but
Yeah.
it's something where the press release website or the website that's kind of aggregating this kind of content should probably take a better look at the content they're actually publishing and maybe find a way to make sure that their content overall is of really the highest quality possible. The big problem from our side is essentially when our algorithms look at this website and they see all of this low quality stuff.
Yeah.
And they essentially don't really know where to categorize this website. Is this a website that has primarily low-quality stuff, has primarily good stuff, or some mixture? How much should we trust this content? So if this site keeps publishing these kind of low-quality, duplicated press releases, then that's something that the algorithms will generally pick up on over time.
Oh, I see. Okay, so I would agree. I mean, the editorial team has to be more strict on that. But, I mean, I keep on seeing this for the past 9 months. I mean, it's the same thing over like top three, and and they changed the title a little bit. The content would not be duplicated, but the content just doesn't make sense. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, kind of like spun content, those kind of things.
Yeah, but it's the same thing over, and it's the same companies. It's the top 3, and keeps on mentioning, this model and that model and this model. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. I
don't know. Again, but it's just the top 3, the top.
Kind of repetitive, huh?
Yeah.
It kind of depends a bit on how excessive this is, in the sense that sometimes our manual web spam team would take steps there as well. But if this is just like a few copies of this content and overall these sites are fine, then that's probably something we wouldn't take any manual action on. That's something where we'd say our algorithms should be picking up on this over time. But
okay, if you send the examples, John, and you can have a look.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yeah.
Take a look at that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's take a look at some of the questions from the Q&A. When disavowing a domain, does that mean we only need to wait for Googlebot to recrawl the homepage of that domain to take the reclassification into account, or will it also need to recrawl the page with the bad do-follow link on it? Essentially, we need to recrawl the individual pages where those links are on. So using a domain directive makes it a lot easier in that you don't have to specify the individual pages, but we still have to recrawl those pages, and then when we recrawl them, we take those links out. So yes, we do still need to kind of wait to recrawl those individual pages. My site has been hit by Penguin, and it partially recovered a little bit with every new Penguin update. There still seems to be a light anchor that is holding my site back in rankings. This is how Penguin recovery works. It's hard to say without looking at the specific website, but it could be that what you're seeing is that things are kind of picking up. So if you see that your site is becoming more visible again, then that's something that could be the normal part of the Penguin recovery here. In that maybe there's still small parts of our algorithms that aren't completely happy with everything, but overall things are looking up again. So that's generally good. One of you guys has a bit noise in the background. Let me just mute you. Okay, that was you, Manjinder. If you want to speak, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. Is this true? Posting the same content to various multiple distribution sites doesn't hurt search ranking. The penalty only occurs when one website publishes the same content repeatedly across its pages. Google objects to having many pages on one website. I don't know if this kind of goes into what you were talking about before, Baruch, but generally speaking, having many pages on one website is fine. Having many pages that are kind of similar on one website is also fine. Can be a normal part of a website, depending on where this duplication is coming from. If this, for example, just like a technical duplication, in that you have URL parameters, those kind of things. With regards to duplicating content across a number of sites, usually that's pretty easy for us to pick up on and not something where there'd be any kind of a manual action, because our algorithms usually would pick up on those things automatically.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, are you here, Vince? I see you're muted.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Do you want to kind of elaborate on your question?
Yeah, the reason I ask is... Oh, yeah, yes. Actually, the reason I ask is because there's an ongoing debate. So, I was trying to explain to a friend of mine that the what do you call this, that duplicating a content would actually hurt their ranking if they use the same content and would just propagate it through different distribution sites. But according to his argument, it doesn't hurt it. That's why I asked you the question: is it true?
Okay.
So
okay.
yeah. So basically, what they are doing is just using the same content in an article directory sites.
Okay. Yeah. So essentially, if you're just taking your content and you're syndicating it across a large number of websites, what you're kind of doing is diluting your content, in the sense that some people might be linking to your pages, other people might be linking to one of these article websites or one of these other distribution sites, and essentially all of that kind of dilutes the value of your content. And what can happen is, for example, that one of these other sites starts ranking for your content instead of your website. And that's probably not what you're trying to do. I mean, what you're trying to do is bring attention to your website and make sure that people come to your website because you have high-quality content, because you're an authority in this kind of area. And that's something that if you just distribute your content randomly across the web, you're kind of showing, this content isn't really that valuable. I just want to spread it out as widely as possible. It's not something that I want to kind of have directly associated with my website, but kind of indirectly use it as advertising. And sometimes it can make sense to kind of bring the word out about your website, about your content. But if you're just taking your content that you worked hard on and spreading it across all of these different sites, then you're kind of diluting the value. There are not so many people that are going to go directly to your website for this content because it's already all over the web. So that from that point of view, it's something where you could use this as a way to advertise your website if these are no-follow links, for example. But you probably want to keep the high-quality content on your website so that people actually go to your website and not just some random article website that perhaps isn't even really known for the type of content that you're providing.
Because that's not what Google's about. I mean, it's in the end of the day, you know, we got to serve the user, right? And
yeah, I mean, from our point of view, we want to recognize that your website is built up on high-quality, unique, and compelling content. And if your website only contains content that's already available on thousands of article directories, then it's going to be hard for us to say this is a great website, we should promote it in search, because we don't really know, because this content is all over the place. Whereas if this high-quality content is on your website and people are going and linking to your website for this high-quality content, then that's something that kind of builds up value over time. And that's something where you'll definitely see some kind of a positive effect over time. So from that point of view, I really recommend not just randomly spreading your content across these other websites, but rather building your website up to be really an authority in that area and your website actually having this important content. Does that help answer the question?
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. One of our sites has been hit by negative SEO recently with lots of pingback and blog comments. However, most of them are no-follow already, and a few of them are do-follow. Do we need to disavow the domains which had do-follow links? Generally speaking, we pick up on these kind of things automatically, but if you've been noticing them already by yourself and you want to be absolutely sure that they don't really cause any problems, and I just put them in a disavow file with a domain directive, and then you don't have to worry about this anymore.
Can I just add to that?
Sure.
What I did in this case, and I suggest all webmasters do, is I had a client where he was hit over 100 times, okay? I went to each and every site to find out who that person is, and I had that removed. All right, it got to the point where I contacted that person, and they apologized to me for doing what they did, and not only that, they went ahead and removed like all this mumbo jumbo to pretty much to the entire site. So the entire site, you know, just what they did was they just copied all the links from this site and put it on, you know, the entire website, and it was just out of control. And that person apologized and has removed it. So that's what our job, you know, should be. I mean, that, you know, I mean, yes, you can do the short way, but at the same time, no need to touch that, you know, disavow certain times. You can just go ahead and just, you know, work a little harder and have that kind of stuff removed. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you can do it like that, that's definitely a good thing to do. Really removing this content is always a little bit better than a disavow file because it's really cleaned up already.
For sure, yeah. I mean, that's the last resort. But in terms of blog comments, they removed the blog comments as well. And so, yeah.
Wow, you have the magic touch.
Yes.
Awesome, yeah. All right. Would it be possible for the structured data view to show multi-type entity as a single data type? Currently, all types of a multi-type entity are shown as separate types, which is quite cumbersome when checking the types found. I can pass that feedback on to the Webmaster Tools team to see if we can kind of simplify that a little bit. I wasn't really aware that this was so much of a problem, but I can take a look at that. We're seeing links from search pages, especially a site called m.biz. There are approximately 100 of these domains, which is an exact replica of this site. We have disavow m.biz, but do we need to disavow all similar ones? Usually we can recognize these kinds of duplication, but again, if you want to be absolutely sure that they're not counted and you already have this list of domains, then adding them to the disavow file is generally easy to do. Maybe, like Baruch mentioned, another alternative is to try to see if you can find the main source and have it removed there directly so that it's also removed from all of the individual ones. That might be a little bit better. But essentially, if you know of these domains and you don't want those links to be counted at all, then putting them in the disavow file is a good way to at least make sure that they're not used by our algorithms. When will Google start sending a refer from when searching from IE8? Matt said 2 to 3 weeks, but it's been almost 2 months. I don't know. I can double check with the guys there about that. Good point. I manage sites for individual US real estate agents who syndicate property listings to Zillow and Trulia. They outrank my customers even when searching for these listings. Will rel Canonical help signal Google that the agents are the authoritative listing source? Yes, if you can get a rel Canonical set up on those sites, then that might be a possibility. The other thing to keep in mind is that even though some of these sites, some of these are copies, doesn't mean that it's something that users don't want to find in the search results. So it's similar if you have, for example, affiliates who are also selling your products. Sometimes they might do a better job of actually selling your products than you do, and users might want to find their site in the search results directly. So that's something where you might want to kind of see what's actually happening there and think about whether or not it makes sense to kind of force them to put the rel Canonical on there to encourage search engines to go back to your site and show that in the search results. Or maybe this is even a situation where you say, OK, they're bringing traffic to my site. They're selling our products. What more do we really want from them? So maybe that's OK. But essentially, you kind of have to work together with these other sites and think about what your final goal should be. Is that your website should be the only one showing these in search results? And if so, using a rel Canonical or having them use a no index might be a good idea. If you just want to get the word out about your products and services, then maybe having this content on the other sites as well is fine and not something that you'd need to manually hold back. Can we ever expect there to be a queried entity view with data about structured data types, more or less the same like search queries view, which only shows entities as opposed to keywords? That sounds tricky. I don't know. Are you here in the Hangout?
Who's that?
Jamo, Fandriel. I'd love to hear more about what you're thinking about there. So if you're watching this, or if you have time maybe for one of the next Hangouts, it would be interesting to have you come along and maybe show something more or explain it a little bit better what you're actually looking for there. That sounds pretty interesting. I don't know if it's something we could easily add to Webmaster Tools, but it sounds like something maybe worth looking at. Will Webmaster Tools ever show whether or not how search results are shown? For example, as rich snippets, type of snippet, if it got shown in a knowledge graph, and what the click-through rate was. I don't think that would be happening anytime soon because there's so many factors that kind of go into exactly how we show the search results. And so it's not something where we'd say you can easily kind of tweak your website to appear in a knowledge graph and then your click-through rate will be higher. We try to do this as algorithmically as possible. So I don't think we'd be including that kind of information anytime soon. That said, I wouldn't count it out completely because we do show some of this information, for example, for authorship. So maybe that could be coming. I think you just joined. Is that right?
Hi, John. I just joined, yeah.
Perfect. Can you elaborate on your idea with the...
Now, one of the things I'm struggling with is showing my clients the return of investment of investing in structured data. And, of course, things like shown click-through rates help. But at this moment, there's no way to prove to my clients whether or not it's caused because they change anything to their content or whether they made any structured data changes. And in real life, I encounter a lot of situations where clients don't want to invest in structured data because it's so hard to show any form of return of investment.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. It's tricky because there's so many factors also on our side which are kind of involved there. On the one hand, we try to use this to understand the page a little bit better, which indirectly could slightly be affecting rankings, maybe not strongly, but a little bit, of course. And sometimes we bubble this information up as rich snippets in the search results. If we can recognize that it's a high-quality site, if we can recognize that this structured data was implemented correctly and technically and policy-wise. So that's something where you might see that, and where you might see perhaps higher click-through rate as well. But we don't have a direct way of kind of showing that in Webmaster Tools at the moment. So maybe that's something we could look at there.
Okay, it would be nice to have extra things to show return of investment, because at this moment it's really troublesome.
Yeah, I think one thing I'd recommend doing at the moment, if you're working with clients like that, is to focus primarily on structured data that you can actually see in the search results, which would be things that we would use for rich snippets, and not just mark up everything that you find, for example, in schema.org, where you can mark up, I don't know, almost every entity on a page. Because a lot of that markup are things that we're probably going to be ignoring for a while now, and it's going to be a while before we actually show that directly in the search results. Whereas if you're using the markup for things like products with the prices, availability, review ratings, those kind of things, and that's all markup that's much more likely to be shown in the search results. That'll have a nice snippet in the search results, where at least when you look at the search results, you'll see, oh, this is a change compared to previously. And with regards to click-through rate, that's always a bit tricky, but I imagine you'll see at least some changes when it becomes visible. But we can see if we can maybe bring a little bit more of that information into Webmaster Tools as well.
Would be nice, because that would really help in convincing people to invest more in structured data.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. When will the next Penguin refresh happen?
Well, there you go. So that's a very good question.
We tend not to pre-announce these, so I'm sure you'll see when the next one happens. It's been a while since the last one, so I wouldn't be surprised if one happens soon, but I don't have any other information that I can share with you guys at the moment.
But it's on a yearly basis, though, right? It's on a yearly basis, like.
The last ones, I believe, were like in
Barry?
half year or something. Barry probably has the records, yeah.
May 21st, right, or around there?
I thought it was September or something in the fall. I don't know.
October the 3rd.
October the 3rd.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd have to go to Barry's site to check it out. 50 days past revocation, traffic and ranks Traffic and ranks haven't moved, even for keywords where we ranked #1 for 14 years. Our rank is low. Any time frame after which effects kick in. I'd have to take a look at the individual threads and the website to see what exactly is happening there. I think one thing to keep in mind is that some of these manual actions also coincide with perhaps algorithmic changes on our side. So maybe you saw a manual action for one issue and you cleaned that up and the manual action is revoked. And now our algorithms are viewing your site like they normally would based on the normal crawling indexing algorithms that we have. And maybe this manual action was just a small part there. So maybe you're seeing a small change from the manual action, but the bigger issue is actually that our algorithms picked up on this bigger issue with regards to your website. And maybe that's something that is still being processed. Maybe you fixed the right issues, and it essentially just takes time to recrawl, reindex, and reprocess all of this information. Or maybe you fixed one issue for the manual action, but not actually the one for the algorithmic problems. And in general, what I'd recommend there is to check in the Webmaster Help Forum or one of the other Webmaster forums and get input from experienced webmasters who've gone through this process before, who might be able to point out things that you missed. And maybe you've done that already. Maybe the thread that you're linking to is something in our forums. So depending on what all happened there, what issues you had there, it might be just a matter of waiting until those are actually reprocessed and kind of cleaned up. In the meantime, of course, this doesn't mean that your website is always going to remain in this place while we reprocess this information. You can continue working on your website, and you can continue kind of seeing the results of those improvements over time as well. So if one algorithm kind of pushes your site down a bit, that doesn't mean that you have to wait for that algorithm to be reprocessed. You can work on everything else on your website as well during that time to kind of get things bubbling up again as well. So my recommendation there would be get more advice from other webmasters, and in the meantime, don't just wait it out, but actually continue working on your website. What's the difference between a 301 and a 303 redirect past the technical part and from the algorithmic part? Is it different from the 307 redirect? Whoa, that's kind of complicated. So essentially, what we do on our side is primarily differentiate between permanent and temporary redirects, and we try to kind of combine all of the other type of redirects into either is this a permanent redirect or is this something that's kind of temporary. And to some extent, if we see these redirects happening consistently over time, then we'll probably tend to treat them automatically in a special way. So 303 redirect is a see other redirect. I'm not sure. I imagine we treat this as a temporary redirect. So from our point of view, that's something let's see. I wouldn't necessarily focus so much on the specific type there and the specific details of how these redirects are actually handled. Usually what happens here with these kind of redirects is we have to make a decision on whether or not to index the redirecting page or the redirection target. And if we see a redirect consistently happening from one URL to the other one, then that starts looking like a permanent redirect to us, and that starts looking like something where we really have to make a call between picking up either the redirecting page or the redirection target. So in some of those cases, we take into account other signals as well, like which URL seems to be the more popular one, or which URL seems to be the nicer one to show in search. So if your home page, for example, is redirecting to some really long, complicated URL within your website, then we'll probably pick the home page to show in the search results, even if you're using a permanent redirect from that page to that long and complicated URL.
So suppose I sell a shoe and then that shoe is out of stock. I would 307 it because it's temporary, right? And then I can bring it back.
You could do that, yeah. So if you have a replacement product and you're saying this is a replacement for this product in the meantime, you could use a 307. Let's see, what's a 307? Temporary redirect, yeah. That's something we pretty much treat as a temporary redirect, like a 302. So you could use a 302 or a 307 and redirect to the alternative product in the meantime. You could take that back after some time. If we see that this redirect is happening for a longer period of time, then we'll probably treat that as a 301 internally, even if you're serving it to us as a 302 or a 307.
Oh, wow.
Because if we see that this URL always leads to this alternate product that you're sending to, then we have to assume that actually this isn't something that's going to disappear tomorrow. This is probably the permanent state.
So it's better to go with the 301 and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, from that point of view, it's something we'll definitely recrawl that redirecting URL from time to time, and if we don't see a redirect, we'll pick that up again. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of similar to a 301 or a 302, and in that regard, it's not something where you really have to make this complicated technical decision with regards to, oh, should I 302 or 301 there? That's the kind of situation where you can probably just go with a 301 and leave it like that. The main difference for us with a 302 and a 301 is actually on the user side, in the sense that some of these redirects aren't cached and others are cached. And if, for example, your website is behind a proxy for some ISP, and one user sees a redirect to one page, then the next user, if that's a cached redirect type, then the next user will see the same redirect as well. So, for example, if you have a page that redirects based on the user's language setting, for example, and that redirect is cached on the ISP side, then if one user gets the German version, then the next user is going to get the German version, even if they have an English browser, for example. So that's the kind of situation where you'd want to make sure you're using the technically correct redirect type, one that isn't cached, like 302, for example. But if you're just moving things around on your website, then I'd probably just go with a 301 and leave it like that. So I guess a long and complicated answer. And again, from my part, I wouldn't worry so much about the search side of things there, but really think about which one is cached and which one isn't cached, and then pick the one that matches the behavior that you're trying to achieve.
John, I have a question. Okay.
Okay.
So a webmaster has been contacting me back and forth about maybe being hit by a penguin algorithm, and this person happens to push out probably, I think, 5 new websites a day for clients. Not for themselves, but they do a lot of, they're a huge company that does a lot of web design. On almost all of them, they have a footer link saying web designed by company name with a link. It's not really keyword-rich anchor text like, New York Web Development. It's just the name of the company.com with a link. And it's a mass amount of sites. Would you recommend they no follow those links?
I asked him about that, yeah.
Yeah, usually most web design companies do, I don't know, maybe a couple a month, a few a month, not like 5 to 10 a day.
Like powered by?
Yeah, so especially if it's not something like a keyword-rich anchor where you're like saying web design just like as a footer link or something like that, then generally that's less of a problem for us. If it's a keyword-rich anchor, then that's something where maybe the web spam team would take a look at that and say, this looks like they're just trying to manipulate the search results. It's not something that the client can choose to do. And the other part, also from the web spam team's point of view, is whether or not this is something that the website owner, so the person who's kind of receiving this website, has a say in or not. Are they consciously linking to this other website, or is this something that's essentially forced on them, maybe a part of the package, in the sense that you'll get this website cheaper, but you have to include this link on the bottom? And at that point, it starts looking a little bit more iffy, and something where you definitely want to put like a no-follow on there. And if you want to put your advertising on these other websites and encourage people to go to your website, then that's fine. But that's something you'd have to put the no-follow on for.
So Google wouldn't necessarily know if it's part of the package unless it's explicitly written. If a site like this was doing 5 to 10 a day, and I don't know if it was or not, but from a Googler's perspective, a person sitting in your shoes, maybe you don't do manual actions, but somebody else on your team might, or somebody around the corner from you might. If they saw this, would they assume it was part of the package and thus needs no follow?
Over time, with their experience, I would say yes, right?
It kind of depends on the overall picture. And if they're doing 5 to 10 of these websites a day, then it probably gets a little bit trickier and something where they'd want to look into the details a little bit more. It's probably something where they wouldn't just say, oh, I see 500 links, so this is good or this is bad. They'd probably look into the details there to try to figure out what exactly is happening there and whether or not this is causing any problems on our side. So that's something where just like glancing at it, you probably wouldn't be able to make a call, but looking at the bigger picture and seeing how this is working within those websites, within the website that's actually providing those websites, probably something worth doing there. But from a webmaster point of view, what is probably the easiest thing to do there is to just say, okay, I'll put a no follow on those links and say I'm using this as a way of advertising my services. I'm putting out a lot of websites. These are high quality websites. I can vouch for them. I want my name on them. And I'm happy to see this as a way of advertising my services. And in that view, just having a no follow on there is generally fine. And I don't think you'd see like a big problem in search if you went with a no-follow in a case like that.
Okay, thank you.
But I mean, it'd be interesting to look at the exact example, and I'm happy to check with one of the web spam teams to kind of look at that. If you want to give me that, that's fine. I'll try to make sure that they don't just push the red button when they see it, but it might be interesting to look at that so I can give you a more exact answer next time.
So it's okay to have an anchor text like ABC in Toronto SEO, ABC SEO, or is it just, I mean, even with a no follow? I mean, like, isn't that?
I mean, if you put the no follow on it, you can use whatever you want. That's essentially an advertisement for us, right? So we're not going to count it within our links. So if you put a no follow on there, you can use whatever anchor text you want. You can use an image or whatever you want to do.
Right.
And from the algorithmic part, does a big mass of branded anchors can hold your website?
I didn't quite get that. So branded anchors or?
Yes. Let's say you have many branded anchors that pass page rank. Can it hold your website from the algorithmic part, not from the manual web spam?
Normally, we'd work on recognizing that and treating it appropriately. I mean, it's something, if this is your brand and it's your company name, it's your website name, if someone is searching for that, your website will already be ranking for that. So it's probably not something you absolutely need to have these branded anchors for. So from that point of view, it's not something you absolutely need, but it's something that our algorithms can also work on treating appropriately so that they don't cause any other issues there. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about that primarily, unless, of course, your brand is something like keyword 1, keyword 2, keyword 3, and you're saying, this is my brand name, but actually, it's just a collection of keywords. It's not really a brand by itself. All right. Do internal backlinks affect Penguin? For example, if commercial anchor text is used internally to link to other internal pages, does this have an effect on Penguin? That's not something that we'd use for our algorithms when it comes to web spam issues, because essentially within your website, you're just shuffling the PageRank around a little bit within your website. You're not artificially gaining PageRank that way. So from that point of view, that's generally fine. The only thing I'd watch out for there is that you're not overdoing it with internal links, in the sense that when you look at this page, it looks just like keyword stuffing. So sometimes we see that on websites where they have content on top, and then they have a section on the bottom, which is just like 100 different keywords that are linking to internal pages in various parts of your own website. And from our point of view, that starts looking a lot like keyword stuffing. And that's something where our algorithms will try to step in and say, OK, these pages are clearly keyword stuffed. They have a lot of keywords on them that aren't relevant for the primary content on these pages. So we have to think about what we can do about these pages. So it's not so much the problem with the links between those internal pages, but rather that you're just using the same keyword-rich anchors all over your website, which makes it really hard for us to recognize what those pages are actually about. If I disavow a domain, for example, apples.com, does that mean that all subdomains like www.apples.com are also disavowed? Yes, that does mean that. So, for example, if you disavow blogspot.com, then you've disavowed pretty much all of the blogs that are hosted on blogspot.com that are indexed as blogspot.com. So that's something where you probably want to watch out for, making sure you're disavowing the right thing. A lot of times you'll want to disavow all of the subdomains. So if apples.com is a bad website or one that you don't want to be associated with, then maybe you want to disavow all of their subdomains as well at the same time. If you want to disavow individual subdomains, I just do that on a more granular level and use a domain directive with the subdomain. What if my page links to the same page internally from different anchor text more than 100 times because of dynamic page template and just using a # in the URL? For example, abc.com product abc/#. Will this give the wrong signal to Google about the relevancy of the page? Probably. Essentially, you can do that. This is kind of similar to the previous question. You can put a lot of internal links on your pages. What will probably be more visible for us are actually the anchor text, kind of like the text we see on the page themselves. So not so much that you're linking all of these pages, but when we look at them, we just see all of this text as well. So that's essentially fine. With regards to the number sign in the URL, that's something where we generally crawl and index the primary URL without the number sign there. So we'll probably automatically canonicalize that to the main path with the file name instead of adding the number sign at the end.
John, another question about structured data.
Sure.
You said earlier that even though schema.org offers a lot of entities, you don't use that many. Now, personally, I'm quite involved at the discussion group at the W3C in regards to schema.org, and there we're working our butts off to get as many things fixed and added to schema.org as possible. What on average is the adoption rate of Google and the schema.org types that get added to it?
It's hard to say. I mean, we also have people working with schema.org directly to make sure that we can get that working as well as possible. But one of the big difficulties, I guess, from our side is that webmasters generally want to see some kind of effect on their side or in the search results, like you mentioned as well. And there's only a limited amount of room that we have in the search results where we can bring more of the structured data into the view. So that's something for individual search results. I imagine it's going to remain fairly limited.
But that's more the rich snippets, the visual add-on.
Yeah, exactly. So that's probably going to remain a bit limited because we just don't have that much room. And I know the people working on user experience, they always come to us and say, oh, you shouldn't put so much fancy stuff in the search results. It should be as clean as possible so that people can find the information they need and move on. With regards to using some of this, for example, in the sidebars or with other kind of interactions, that's something where I imagine it'll be more possible to bring more things in there, kind of like we did with the events, in that you search for a musical artist and we'll show the events in the sidebar under the knowledge graph and link to those pages like that. So I imagine we'll see more there, but even there it's kind of limited in the sense that we can't bring everything from all websites directly into the search results. So I doubt you'd see like a big jump in adoption where we go from, I don't know, the 7 types of rich snippets to 100 types of schema.org entities that we suddenly support for knowledge graph and everything. But it's always also a problem of like the chicken and the egg, in the sense that if no websites are using this kind of markup, then we're not going to invest any time to actually show that in search results and use it for rankings and understanding these pages better.
Exactly.
So
without the rich snippets, just what I imagine is that even though you don't have any visuals for it, it still helps in regards to Google understanding your website and disambiguate the subjects of your website, and in that sense can help
a little bit
better understand and return your website for those relevant.
Yeah, a little bit. It certainly helps in that regard. Usually the bigger effect that I see when a site goes to implement structured data is that their website overall just gets a very clean structure, in the sense that maybe it used to be almost like a Word file that was exported as HTML and there's all kinds of messy markup that's really hard to understand. And suddenly when you implement structured data, you have to kind of use a strong and a strict structure on those pages, and that by itself makes it a lot easier for our algorithms to understand those pages better. So theoretically, even if you didn't add all of this structured data markup, if you significantly clean up those pages, make it a lot easier for us to actually pick up this content and understand it, understand the context of the images and things like that that are embedded there, then that by itself already helps quite a bit. Yeah. But I see where you're coming from, in the sense that there's so many different types of entities out there, and it would be great to kind of know that they're being used for something useful at the moment. So I'm definitely going to kind of continue working with the structured data guys to make sure that we can at least bubble up a little bit more information there, maybe in Webmaster Tools or somewhere else.
Well, maybe do a hangout together with Dan Brickley. That would be nice.
Yeah, definitely.
John, now that we know Google Plus is going under, what's going to happen with authorship in terms of that?
Come on, Google Plus isn't going away.
What if it cuts off right in between, right now?
We'll let you know. Google will let you know.
No, I mean, as long as I do these Hangouts, it means that Google Plus is still up, right?
Right. All right.
And I mean, Vic was definitely a very important person for the team, but there are lots of really smart engineers and managers on the Google Plus team, so I don't see them packing their bags and going off and, I don't know, building something completely different. So I think Google Plus for us is a very important platform, and a lot of other things build up on Google Plus, so it's not going to disappear from one day to the next.
Yeah, Google's gone. I won't be able to use my background and this and that.
John, you saw the Schema Action stuff?
I briefly looked at that. I didn't see it in detail.
Okay, then forget it. I'm looking forward to seeing more on what Google supports now, what they're working to support with schema and markup. That'll be very exciting.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening with the structured data, so it's interesting. All right. We're running kind of low on time. Do any of you guys have more questions?
Barry?
I always have questions, and I don't want to hog everything.
All right. Otherwise, I'll
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Here's one. There's no such thing as like a do follow tag, right?
Yeah.
So
No,
if somebody puts do follow instead of no follow in their links, is that like a red flag? It's like something we should tell people not to do.
We basically just ignore that. I mean, you can put like rel, I don't know, pumpkin in a link, and it doesn't make any sense for us, so we'll just ignore that. We'll just treat it as a normal link. But if we see rel no follow pumpkin, then we'll see, oh, it says no follow, and we'll treat it as a no follow link.
So you're not aware of any Googler out there trying to find code to find spammy links that have do follow in it.
I imagine there are lots.
That's like somebody specifically putting a link there saying, please Google, do follow this external link to some other website.
I mean, there are a lot of signals of people doing something spammy, and there are a lot of signals of people just not knowing exactly what they're doing. But I wouldn't say that every time someone doesn't know what they're doing, they're being spammy. So from that point of view, I wouldn't necessarily treat that as a pure spam signal. I mean, we have other things like the meta tags, like the robots meta tags, where they'll say, I want Googlebot to index this page and follow all the links. And essentially, I mean, we do that by default, right? Or the meta tag, what is it, revisit after, that I don't think any search engine has used ever, but it's still very common. Lots of people put it on their pages and say, oh, I want my home page revisited every day and this page every 5 days. And that's something you could say they don't really know what they're doing, but I don't think it makes sense to kind of penalize them for anything like that. So similarly with like a do follow tag on a link, you know, if you want to put that there for yourself, fine. We're going to ignore it. It's not going to cause any problems. It's not going to have any advantage. It's just random text there. And we have to deal with broken and invalid HTML all the time, so it's not something that I think our algorithms would get hung up on, or we even spend any time manually looking at those kind of things.
Okay. 2 is, you said, I think, either this morning or a couple days ago, that do not use in Webmaster Tools what's it called? The feature to remove a site for HTTPS, because that will remove the HTTP version as well. Somebody just asked me, does the same apply when you use the robots.txt file for blocking HTTPS version?
So the site removal request is a bit special because that's in Webmaster Tools, and essentially we assume you mean that you want this content removed completely, so we'll remove HTTP, HTTPS, www, non-www versions of the site. And if you're trying to use this for canonicalization, then of course you just removed everything and there's nothing to canonicalize anymore. But the good news there is at least you can click the cancel button and it'll be back to normal pretty soon. Robots.txt is different in the sense that it is separate per host name and per protocol. So theoretically, you could have a separate robots.txt file for HTTPS that has different crawling restrictions than the HTTP version. So you could block crawling on all HTTPS if that's what you wanted to do, and allow crawling on all HTTP URLs. If you want to do that, that's fine. It's kind of up to you. Usually you wouldn't use robots.txt for canonicalization, though. So if someone, for example, were to link to the HTTPS version of your site, then by having it all roboted out, that link would essentially go to a page that we don't know what it actually contains. So we might show that URL actually in search if it's blocked by the robots.txt, because we say, oh, lots of people are linking here. We can't crawl it. We don't know what it is, but it seems to be important, so we'll show it in search. So the better thing there would be, if you don't want your HTTPS site to be indexed, either turn it off completely or use a redirect to the preferred version, or just put authentication on it, so server-side authentication, so that we can't actually crawl those URLs at all.
Okay. And finally, that SSL stuff going on last week. Any update on that?
Yeah, we're working on making those messages a little bit clearer so that it's not quite as confusing as it was last week. I don't know how soon we'll be back with those messages, but we'll definitely kind of send those out again. To some extent, it's tricky because it does point at an actual problem on these websites. Even if nobody has been using the HTTPS version of a site, if you're providing it and users get a certificate error when they go there, then that's kind of a problem that's worth fixing, even if nobody else has been looking at those pages before. So from that point of view, it makes sense to send it out to a lot of these sites because it's really an issue that's out there. But we probably have to make sure that we have the phrasing right so that they don't all panic and wonder if their website is going to disappear tomorrow.
Awesome. And last question, just on record, do you think Google's is it moral or unethical for penalizing or demoting websites?
Yay.
I forget, I'm joking and I'm saying that. Okay. Thank you for your time.
All right. And with that, it looks like we're out of time. So thank you all for joining. And maybe we'll see you guys again in one of the future Hangouts. And until then, I wish you guys a great week.
Yeah, like
Bye.
always, amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
See you later.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye, John. I pinged you the info.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.